June 6, 1944, 0630 hours. Off the coast of Gold Beach, Normandy. The sea heaves like a living beast. Salt spray whipping across the decks of Allied landing craft as the first rays of dawn pierce the smoke-choked horizon. Explosions rumble from the beaches. German 88mm guns barking defiance, their shells carving craters in the sand where paratroopers and infantrymen claw for cover. Amid the chaos, massive shadows loom on the waves. Colossal concrete behemoths towed by straining tugs, their silhouettes defying the storm-tossed channel. These are no ordinary ships. They're floating giants, pieced together in secrecy, now inching toward the shore like mythical leviathans rising from the deep. Feel the tension in the air, thick as the diesel fumes from the escort destroyers. Royal Navy sailors' grip rails, eyes wide at the improbable sight. What in God's name are those? One mutters, voice lost in the roar of waves crashing against reinforced hulls. Engineers from the Royal Engineers 20th Port Construction Group bark orders over the din, their faces etched with exhaustion from the overnight crossing. The first Phoenix Caisson, a 6,000-ton concrete monster, hollow and buoyant, bobs perilously close to the beachhead, its walls scarred from the tow. Nearby, wail roadways uncoil like serpents, flexible steel spans ready to bridge sea to sand. No one dares breathe as the tugs maneuver, positioning these prefabricated puzzles amid minefields and artillery fire. A single miscalculation, and the whole operation crumbles. But as the first caisson settles into position, sinking deliberately to form a breakwater, a murmur spreads among the troops. This mad invention might just work. Supplies stack up on the beaches. Ammo crates, fuel drums, jeeps bog in the tide, desperate for a lifeline. Without a port, the invasion stalls. Yet here, against all odds, one man's vision begins to take shape. But as the assembly races against time, dark clouds gather on the horizon. A storm brewing that could shatter everything. The storm approaches. June 19, 1944, 0200 hours. The English Channel, off Arromanches. The wind howls like incoming artillery. Waves tower 20 feet high, whitecaps slashing across the half-built Mulberry Harbor at Omaha Beach. What began as a freshening breeze has exploded into the worst June storm in 40 years. A nor'easter that catches the Allies completely off guard. Phoenix Caissons, those towering concrete walls meant to shield the anchorage, groan and shudder as the sea hammers them without mercy. Steel cables snap with the crack of rifle shots. One 6,000-ton blockhouse tears loose, slamming into its neighbor before both vanish beneath the foam. You can almost taste the panic on the bridge of HMS Dispatch as signal lamps flash frantic warnings. Royal Engineers cling to bucking pontoons, soaked to the bone, watching their weeks of labor disintegrate. At Gold Beach, the British Mulberry B, christened Port Winston, holds, but only just. The whale roadways flex like ribbons in the gale, while Lobnitz's pierheads rise and plunge 30 feet with every swell. Men shout over the roar, voices raw. She's going to break apart. A corncob blockship, deliberately scuttled to form a gooseberry breakwater, rolls violently and founders, its hull splitting with sound like thunder. Back in England, planners stare at weather charts in stunned silence. The American harbor is doomed. Mulberry A will be completely destroyed by dawn. Thousands of tons of supplies still sit on the beaches, exposed. Without a functioning port, the entire Normandy bridgehead could starve within days. Eisenhower's gamble hangs by a thread. Yet in the midst of the chaos, one harbor defies the storm. Port Winston clings to life, battered but unbroken, and with it, the audacious dream of a quiet Welsh engineer who dared to imagine floating cities on the open sea. The quiet visionary. Spring 1942. A modest office in Cardiff, Wales. Rain streaks the windows as Hugh Iorys Hughes, a soft-spoken civil engineer with round spectacles and a perpetual look of concentration, hunches over blueprints spread across his desk. Outside, the war rages. U-boats prowl the Atlantic. Ports like Cherbourg and Le Havre crawl with German defenses. Allied planners know the truth. Any invasion of France must seize a deep-water port immediately, or the beachhead dies from lack of supplies. But every fortified harbor on the continent is a death trap. Hughes doesn't shout his ideas. He sketches them: floating breakwaters, massive concrete caissons that can be sunk in place to form instant harbors, pontoon roadways that rise and fall with the tide. Colleagues of the Welsh Board of Trade initially smile politely. Nice drawings, but impossible. Yet Hughes persists, building small models in his garden pond, testing how steel and concrete behave in moving water. He calls his creation a synthetic harbor, later codenamed Mulberry. Word reaches London. Winston Churchill, furious at the stalled planning for a cross-channel invasion, demands solutions. In August 1942, he scribbles a famous minute: "They must float up and down with the tide. The anchor problem must be mastered. Don't argue the matter. The difficulties will argue for themselves." Hughes is summoned to the War Office. Skeptical admirals and generals grill him for hours. He answers calmly, pointing to scale tests, calculations, the quiet certainty of a man who has already seen it work in his mind. By late 1943, the impossible becomes official. 2 Mulberry Harbors will be built, one British, one American, using 600,000 tons of concrete, 1.5 million tons of steel, and the labor of thousands working in secret across Britain. Hughes watches the first Phoenix Caissons slide into the water at Convoy, a 6,000-ton monster towering higher than a 6-story building. But as production races forward, a new question looms. Will these floating cities survive the unforgiving channel long enough to win the war? The race against time. May 1944. Hidden construction sites across Britain, from the Thames estuary to remote Scottish lochs. The air rings with the clang of rivet guns and the roar of welding torches as thousands of workers labor around the clock under blackout conditions. Massive concrete Phoenix caissons rise like apartment blocks on dry docks, their hollow interiors designed to float them across the channel before being deliberately flooded. In Liverpool and Southampton, beetle pontoons, steel floats the size of railway carriages, are bolted together by women welders who have never seen the sea. Whale roadways, flexible steel spans supported by those pontoons, stretch for miles along testing grounds, snaking over artificial waves to prove they can carry 40-ton Churchill tanks. Secrecy is absolute. Workers know only their small piece of the puzzle. One riveter on a Phoenix unit jokes, "We're building bloody great bathtubs." Guards patrol the perimeters. Any whisper of Mulberry earns a swift reprimand. Across the Atlantic, American contractors rush their own components, but the bulk of the burden falls on British yards already strained by U-boat losses and Luftwaffe raids. On the beaches of Normandy, still months away, the Germans fortify every port with mines, underwater obstacles, and heavy guns. Rommel himself tours the Atlantic Wall, convinced that the Allies must capture a harbor intact on the first day or perish. He orders millions of tons of concrete poured into fixed defenses, unaware that the enemy has abandoned the idea of seizing ports altogether. By late May, over 200 Phoenix units, 23 pierheads, and 10 miles of whale roadways stand ready, camouflaged under netting. Tugs and crews assemble in hidden creeks, awaiting the signal. D-Day is set. The floating harbors must cross in the invasion's wake, assemble under fire, and begin unloading within days, or the greatest amphibious assault in history fails. But as the Armada gathers in southern England, a final, chilling uncertainty remains. Can these untested giants survive the treacherous waters of the Channel itself? The Perilous crossing. June 5, 1944. 2,300 hours. Portsmouth Harbor, England. The Channel churns under a moonless sky as the Mulberry Convoy slips its moorings, a ghostly fleet of giants lumbering into the dark. Tugs strain against the current, towing Phoenix caissons that wallow like wounded whales, their concrete flanks glistening with sea spray. Escort destroyers slice through the swells, sonar pinging for lurking U-boats. Corvette and Captain Otto Kretschmer's wolf packs still prowl these waters, hungry for easy prey. Aboard the lead tug, Lieutenant Commander John Hodges wipes salt from his eyes, scanning the horizon where Luftwaffe night fighters could appear any moment. Imagine the deck vibrating underfoot, the groan of steel cables taut as bowstrings. Whale roadways trail behind like endless chains, clanking with every wave. Men from the 21st Army Group huddle in makeshift shelters, clutching Sten guns, whispering prayers. The crossing must be flawless. Any delay exposes components to enemy fire or the unpredictable sea. At dawn, as the first Higgins boats hit the beaches, the Mulberry tugs push on, dodging floating mines and the wreckage of gliders that miss their mark inland. By June 7, the first pieces arrive off Arromanches. Under the thunder of 15-inch guns from HMS Rodney, engineers in flak jackets wade into the surf, directing the sinking of caissons with precision charges. Explosions ripple the water as air valves open, flooding the hollow interiors. Down they go, settling into the seabed to form a 2-mile breakwater. Pierheads anchor, roadways connect, and suddenly, lorries rumble across the floating bridge, unloading crates of 105mm shells and K-rations straight from Liberty ships. Yet even as a miracle unfolds, disaster strikes at Omaha. Mulberry, battered by misplaced assembly and early gales, begins to fracture. Supplies slow to a trickle there, forcing a desperate pivot. The enduring legacy. June 23, 1944. Dawn breaks over Port Winston, Arromanches. The storm's fury has passed, leaving a graveyard of twisted metal at Omaha. Mulberry reduced to rubble, its phoenix caissons scattered like fallen monoliths. But at Gold Beach, the British harbor stands defiant, a testament to ingenuity amid ruin. Whale roadways pulse with activity. Bedford lorries rumble across the floating spans, ferrying Sherman tanks and crates of .303 ammunition from waiting LSTs. Overhead, Spitfires streak the sky, warding off stray Ju-88 bombers as the anchorage hums with the offload of 9,000 tons of supplies daily, enough to fuel Patton's Third Army and Montgomery's push inland. You stand on the pierhead, feeling the gentle sway beneath your boots, the salt air thick with the scent of diesel and victory. Royal Pioneer Corps unloaders heave pallets, their shouts mingling with the creak of cranes. By July, Port Winston handles over 2.5 million men, 500,000 vehicles, and 4 million tons of stores, more than all French ports combined before the war. Without it, the breakout from Normandy stalls. Can falls weeks later, Paris by August. Hughes is impossible harbors by the time needed, turning beachheads into fortresses. In the Welsh countryside, Hughes receives quiet commendations, a CBE for his efforts, but the real reward is in the maps. Allied arrows slicing through France, the Third Reich crumbling. Mulberry operates until November, when captured ports finally open, its components later scrapped or sunk as memorials. Yet its legacy endures, a reminder that one engineer's garden experiments reshaped the war, floating harbors that bridged the impossible and paved the road to Berlin. The invasion, once a gamble, becomes inevitable. Hughes's vision didn't just make D-Day possible, it made victory certain. Subscribe for more World War stories. And hit the like button for motivational. Your one click on subscribe and give me motivation. Thanks.